What's up guys, it's Tom here and welcome to a brand new football news video where we will talk about Manchester City again, because they could get relegated and even kicked out of not just the Premier League but the Football League entirely, which would mean 5th division football for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. What do you think should be the right and fair punishment for Manchester City for allegedly breaking 115 financial fair play rules? And Nick Harris has revealed some brand new information, brand new accusations against Manchester City. So let's start, of course, with the obvious. In 2014, Manchester United had a £20 million a year sponsorship deal, shirt sponsorship deal. At that time, Manchester City's Etihad shirt sponsorship deal was worth £67.5 million in 2013. How can Man City, who even in 2013, they were an even smaller club than now, they hardly had any fans outside of the UK, and yet they had a shirt sponsorship deal more than three times as much, worth 3 times as much as Manchester United. So Man United had a 20 million shirt sponsorship deal a year, Man City had 67.5 million in 2013, and that is absolutely staggering. And also, Manchester City, likely what happened, Nick Harris is reporting that Man City requested the cash that they needed to bulk up their squad, to make the transfers from Abu Dhabi, and they tried to find a way to technically comply with accounting. But they didn't do it correctly, first of all, and they were clumsy in paper trail, so of course the auditors found out about it. But the accounts were close enough so that auditors actually signed off on it as being correct, even though it was wrong, which is absolutely staggering. BDO, the auditor company who was in contract with Manchester City at the time, they knew that their client committed fraud on financial statements that would be highly scrutinized, and they gave them a clean opinion anyway. And it's not Nick Harris who is claiming this, but it was a lawyer who is a Man City fan, and he told Nick Harris this in 2022. Another former auditor weighed in on this, that this seems pretty risky and stupid to risk a multi-billion-dollar revenue accounting firm's reputation over fraud in financial statements that are going to be looked at by other third parties. But I think they were just paid off handsomely, and they didn't really care whether they will be found out or not, because Man City paid them so much money that it was worth the risk anyway. And what is also staggering is that this company BDO, who was the auditor for Manchester City at the time, it wouldn't be the first time that this BDO named company has audited accounts that weren't correct or tried to fix them whilst under investigation, because there are multiple news reports coming from 2021 and 2022 that BDO auditor was kicked off the company after changing audit files, basically corrupting them, committing fraud. Financial Reporting Council also is reported in 2021 that in an investigation regarding the audit of a company by this BDO LLP company, the auditor company, basically it faces investigation. This company faced multiple investigations in 2021 over audit of collapsed construction firms and construction companies that basically went bankrupt. So it's a lot of shady business. And Nick Harris also revealed that he has spoken to multiple Manchester City employees and former employees since 2014 who are not comfortable with Manchester City's behavior of financial cheating and financial fraud, auditor fraud. And this former Manchester City employee, who is a lawyer and he used to work for Manchester City, who told this information to Nick Harris, doesn't have the bottle to say it publicly because it would further tarnish Manchester City's already rocky reputation. And the reason why he doesn't say this publicly is because if he said it publicly, it would hugely damage the brand of Manchester City. You can make your own mind up of what you think of that. I have very strong opinions on this because there are more and more people coming out who used to work for Manchester City and who admit that there were shady things going on and who are not really okay with Manchester City's currently how they are operating as well. And Nick Harris actually went one step further. The journalist revealed the direct message that he received from a Manchester City employee who is a lawyer who has worked for Manchester City, and he's also a Manchester City fan as well. This is what the DM said to Nick Harris. So this is the admission from the Manchester City employee and a Manchester City fan as well. I think it's likely Man City requested the cash they needed from Abu Dhabi and then tried to find a way to put that money into the club whilst technically complying with the rules and accounting. But first of all, they didn't do it correctly, and second of all, they were very clumsy in the paper trail, but they were close enough to get the auditors to sign off and leave it close enough to compliance to have an arguable case. That is a big like smoking gun, as they call it in a lawyer talk. And obviously current Manchester City employees won't admit to this, but former employees are much more open about the dodgy work that they did while being employed by Manchester City, because they don't work for Manchester City anymore. And even this former Manchester City employee admits that if it is found out that Man City have broken the rules, then they will be severely punished. And I cannot honestly, I cannot think of a scenario where they will be innocent of all 115 financial fair play rule breaking charges, because that is so many charges for so many years, since 2009. That's like 14 seasons of football where Manchester City cooked the books, where Manchester City financially doped basically, and they were circumventing the rules. They were not following the rules like everybody else, and that is not right. And the whole of English football and the whole of the Premier League, the integrity is questioned for all the seasons where Man City won trophies, and they won a lot. In these 15 years, Man City have won the most trophies in English football, more than Liverpool, more than Man United, more than Chelsea. So I cannot see a scenario where Manchester City are not punished very severely. That I can see, because you know that if Man City pay off the right people, they can get away with a lot of things. So maybe they will get a slap on the wrist, but I'm really hopeful that they will get a severe punishment, because the independent regulator is looming over the Premier League. And I don't agree with everything that the UK government does, but this move that they are threatening the Premier League with this independent regulator is actually a good move by the government, because that finally makes the Premier League actually act on the rules that they are supposed to uphold. Because suddenly now Everton, Nottingham Forest are getting points deductions for breaking the rules, and also Manchester City and maybe even Chelsea will be punished for breaking the rules in the near future, hopefully in 1 or 2 years. And even the Premier League Commission threatened Manchester City and Chelsea that they could be relegated and kicked out of the Premier League if they are found guilty, because there, especially Manchester City's charges are much more severe and much more complicated and much more complex than Everton or the Nottingham Forest case. And basically the UK government said to the Premier League, if you are not upholding your rules and regulations, if you don't clean up your act, then we will step in and an independent regulator will start regulating the Premier League. And that could still happen. And even the German publication Der Spiegel have claimed that the Etihad sponsorship, the company was just paying £8 million of their official £67.5 million obligation to Manchester City, and the rest was paid by equity funding disguised, and that came from the club's Abu Dhabi owners directly. And the Mirror newspaper is claiming that the airline is being prepared for an initial public offering, so the Etihad Airways airline will be probably on the stock exchange, and that actually could be good news for Manchester City. As part of this process, they would allow full disclosure of their accounts. The report from the Mirror newspaper adds that stock market insiders believe it's unlikely that Etihad would be willing to grant unfettered access into their financial affairs and corporate practices if it would uncover a smoking gun to prove fraud had been committed. But you know, it was such a long time ago that maybe they could just delete those kind of records and delete the proof that they cooked up their accounts. And also in this report from the Mirror newspaper, a senior figure in the investment banking industry explains that the allegations made against Man City go way beyond Man City simply breaching the profit and sustainability rules. If it came to light that Etihad executives were indeed involved in manipulating the sponsorship deal with Man City, it could cause serious damage to the company's reputations in the eyes of potential investors. What the Premier League are alleging is extremely serious, not just in terms of football's rules and regulations. The accusation is that Man City executives have colluded with officials from Etihad. They have lied not only to the club's independent auditors, but to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. By extension, that also calls into question what information was disclosed by Man City's owners to Silver Lake before the American private equity firm bought a significant stake in the club in 2019. That's why the Premier League's allegations go way beyond accusing Man City of failing to meet profit and sustainability rules. So this is really, really serious. And Man City could face not just huge fines, but they could face transfer ban, they could face massive points deductions, they could even face expulsion from the Premier League and even the Football League, and even the biggest punishment, I think, which is actually on the table, is being stripped of Premier League titles. I don't know whether teams who finished in second place in the league or in the cup finals would be awarded the titles that they should have won because Man City got there by cheating. Probably the clubs like Arsenal, Manchester United and Liverpool would gleefully accept their delayed crowning moments. This drastic action would undo the unbelievable work done by Guardiola. And yes, you might say it would be unfair on Guardiola and the players because they didn't cheat themselves probably, but they benefited from all the cheating going on into acquiring a squad worth £1.5 billion. The Man City have the most expensive squad assembled ever in the Premier League's history. And also, it's not fair to the other clubs, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, who followed the rules, competed fairly against a club which didn't follow the rules, didn't compete fairly. It would be a punishment for the other clubs who actually competed fair and square, and they came second to a cheating club like Manchester City. So they should be stripped of the titles, and the second place teams should be awarded retrospectively the titles and trophies that they missed out on because of the cheating of Manchester City. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what is your opinion in the comments below, and thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.